Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lure. On this show, we have been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films, that is films featuring sharks, directed by Rennie Harlin, or lots of aquatic action. And this is an aquatic action film. This is actually the first in a new annual series we're going to be doing, looking at Best Picture winning aquatic action-y films, which is going to coincide with the Oscar ceremony each year. So this is our 2024 Oscars episode, and it is on, I think, the first, coincidentally, aquatic action-y film that won Best Picture, Mutiny on the Bounty from 1935. What is Mutiny on the Bounty from 1935? Well, it is, I think, the second adaptation of Mutiny on the Bounty.
That's correct.
The Charles Nordhoff and James Norman Hall novel, because there was an Errol Flynn version before this. And this one stars Charles Lawton, Clark Gable, Franchot Tone, and a bunch of other people in smaller roles. That's the main three. Telling the true story of the Bounty, and you'll never guess what happened. There was a mutiny. Who could have guessed? So this film, as I've said, won Best Picture, but despite being up for several other awards, including 3 nominations for Best Actor, this is, I believe, the only film to ever win Best Picture and nothing else. Not a damn other thing at the Oscars. This is the only one. It has that honoured reputation, I guess.
Well, there were a lot fewer categories in those days.
Well, yeah. So, as you heard, there is someone on the show who knows more about this than I do, so I'm going to introduce him, because you've already heard him. So, joining us for the first time, from the Pop Art podcast, I'm normally on his show to talk about Christmas films once a year, so it makes sense to have him on here to talk about a film that has Christmas in it, however briefly. It's Howard Casner. Howard, welcome to the show.
Well, hello.
Hello. Thrilled to have you. I've been on your show for a few Christmases in a row, and I've been trying to get you back on. Been trying to get you on this show for a while, trying to find a film that would be appropriate for you. And I know that you're a big Oscars fan and you're a big classic cinema fan, so this seemed the perfect coinciding of those two areas of your fandom. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So is Mutiny on the Bounty, are you happy that I picked this film for you to talk about? Are you okay? Did you like this film? Is this one that you're familiar with?
Oh, I do like it. It's a very entertaining film. This may be the 4th time that I've seen it. I mean, I saw it once to see it, and then I probably just saw it another time, and then a friend wanted to watch it. So this is now probably the 3rd or 4th time that I'm seeing it. It's incredibly entertaining. I haven't seen the very first one with Errol Flynn, though. Whenever Errol Flynn said he was in a bounty movie before this, no one ever believed him. But apparently he was. It's the best of the 3. It's the best of the next 2. So it's the best of the remake Mutiny on the Bounty and better than the Bounty. It's very, even though it's long, it's very sparse. It's direct. It's very focused. So it's very entertaining.
Excellent. Well, this is the second time I've seen it. I watched it 7 years ago to review it on my site on Life vs. Film, because it's on the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die list. But suffice to say, I had forgotten pretty much everything that happened in this film. So I kind of revisited my review today, just before recording today, and I was like, oh, I liked it then. I still like it now. That's good. Because I'm not very familiar with a lot of old films or older actors like Charles Lawton and Clark Gable. I think I've seen them both in like 3 films maybe. Just because I'm not that well versed in classic cinema. That is entirely my fault. That's something I'm trying to get better at.
Shame on you. Just shame.
Absolutely. I mean,
we're going to march you through the city naked and just yell shame at you.
I mean, I wouldn't advise it unless it's Hannah Woodingham going to be involved, because I could be persuaded. But no, the reason I started the 1,001 Movies challenge, torture, I guess, endurance feat, was to try and educate myself more on older films, and I didn't bank on that I would forget them, I guess. I thought, I'm going to watch these films and then I'll know more about them, and I watch them and then they just disappear out of my head. So the whole thing seems to be a Sisyphean, fruitless challenge. But there we are. So I also have not seen any of the other adaptations of The Bounty, And it feels odd to me that like the last one was 40 years ago. I feel like this is
Yes,
such
thanks
a.
for reminding me of that.
I'm sorry, but 1984 was the last one with Mel Gibson, very much the Clark Gable of his day, and Anthony Hopkins and Laurence Olivier. Ooh. Daniel Day-Lewis, Bernard Hill. That's a hell of a cast in this. Liam Neeson, my word, fantastic cast in this film. Neil Morrissey from Men Behaving Badly. Excellent. Dexter Fletcher. You can tell I hadn't looked at who was in this film before opening a page now, and I feel like I must watch this because this is an incredible cast and Mel Gibson. Uh,
Well, that
and
one is supposed to be the most accurate picture,
okay.
accurate film as to what really happened.
Yeah, because they did make a few narrative changes. They made Bly a little bit more evil in this adaptation, made him a real hissable villain, but it's all the more entertaining because of it, I guess. So Anthony Hopkins may have scaled that back a little bit. Oh yeah. So I'll have to check out that one. But yeah, I'm surprised there hasn't been another big adaptation since. Uh, this
I don't
seems
know. I
ripe
know the
for
one
it.
with Marlon Brando was a huge flop. I think The Bounty didn't do well either. And then when you have seafaring ones like Master and Commander, which only did okay, it sort of makes people not be so quick to making these kind of seafaring movies. Only Pirates of the Caribbean have really been a huge success in this area.
Yeah, and as the Pirates films have proven, these films can be expensive to make. Because
They are.
as become a regular feature on this show, we talk about just how expensive On Stranger Tides was, as being the most expensive film ever made at the time of production, uh, it costing something like $240 million or some ridiculous figure that it somehow managed to earn back. Uh, yes, good, okay. Well, I'm glad that you're okay with this decision to pick this film. Um, I'm happy to have
I'm
watched it
just
again.
happy to be here, Jay. Just happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm not going to make you our annual Oscar correspondent just because one of our aquatic films we have to get to will eventually be Titanic, and we have a James Cameron correspondent already, who has been
Hmm.
promised that Heather will be joining us back for Titanic some time like this in the future. We'll get there at some point. But there are other aquatic. The Shape of Water is on the list. I'm trying to think what the other ones that I shortlisted as being Best Picture winners that sounded like they could be watery. They
Well, actually, I was trying to think of them, and I didn't even come up with The Shape of Water.
Well,
Uh,
I took some liberties with some of them because like
right.
Rain Man sounds like it
Yes,
should be,
that's a big
but
liberty.
and there's the bridge on the River Kwai. There's a lot of water in that.
Oh, that's right.
And then
Yeah.
on the waterfront.
Yeah. Yes. Well, at least there's water in it,
Sure,
unlike Rain Man.
absolutely. And then there's the one scene in From Here to Eternity, a film I haven't
Oh,
seen.
yes.
So
Oh,
um,
yeah. Okay. You got some. You got some.
so that's like the seven, and then who knows what's going to win in the future years? We could be knee deep
Yeah.
in shark movies that have won Best Picture in the next few years. Who knows?
I
Uh,
suppose we know what's going to win this year, but
Probably. Oh, look, I was going to bring it up later, but we can talk about it now if you want. So, as the day of recording this, the 2024 Oscar nominations were announced yesterday. So we can talk a little bit about it now. I have seen at this point four of them. After this weekend, I will hopefully have seen six of them. And some aren't out in the UK yet, and so like American fiction is now here. What are your thoughts on the nominations this year?
well, I think overall, even though you don't look to the Oscars for great art, you look at them for uh, where we are in the state of pop culture. Um, this was some of the best nominations ever. I've seen 8 of the Best Picture nominees. I'm supposed to see American Fiction this weekend. I'm dying to see The Zone of Interest. But overall, I think these were very strong nominations. I know there's some controversy over some of the nominations. The only big surprise was Margot Robbie not being nominated. I think very few people saw that coming. But Yeah, overall, I mean, I didn't like all the best pictures. When I saw Godzilla -1, I said all the critical acclaim is going to Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Barbie, and Godzilla -1 is better than all three movies put together.
I
So
agree.
that sort of shows where I'm at.
We're big Godzilla -1 fans on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, mainly because of the boat scene. But also it's
Yeah.
just they sink him and bring him back up again. It's great. I love that film. But yeah, so I've seen Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, and Oppenheimer, and I'm hopefully seeing Poor Things in the holdovers this weekend. So of the four I've seen, I haven't seen anything that I would like to win yet. I think Barbie is a fine film. Killers of the Flower Moon is just too damn long. I had to watch it over several days. Films don't need to be that long. It's too long. So
Well, the problem
immediate
isn't the length of
disqualification.
it.
I'm sorry?
Well, the problem isn't the length of it. The problem is Act Two, which is really a drudge to get through. Act One and Act Three are fine. So if they had a better Act Two, you might not have felt the length so much. But it is a long film.
Well, I think the problem, at least partially, is the length, because I don't have 3.5 hours in one go to sit down and watch a film. So I cannot watch it as intended, because I have a lot of difficulty making that time. It's like that's why I'm probably never going to see Oppenheimer again. Like I saw it once and that's it. And Maestro, I didn't really care for Maestro at all. But then I'm not a big musical biopic guy. So that's why like Tar didn't rate highly.
I'm not sure there are a lot of big music biopic people.
True. Yes. Well, so I have high hopes for Poor Things and the Holdovers taking my 1 and 2 spot this year once I've seen them. And then
Poor Things is great.
I love Yorgos Lanthimos. His films are great and nuts, so that's good.
I took my brother and sister-in-law to see it, and I warned them it's going to be really strange. And when we left, I said, I told you it was going to be really strange. And they said, yes, it's really strange.
See, my wife likes Emma Stone, and she was like, do you want to go and see Poor Things? It's like, I want to go and see Poor Things. I don't think you want to go and see Poor Things. Do you remember The Favourite and how you didn't like The Favourite? This is going to be more like that. He's oh, okay, then maybe not then. So yeah. Good. Well, so that's the 96th Academy Awards coming up this year. We need to scroll back all the way to the 8th Academy Awards, because it feels so bizarre that it's the 8th Academy Awards. Like, it's just odd to me to think and look into the history of it. The ceremony almost didn't happen because that was the year that all of the guilds kicked up and tried to ban the Oscars from happening because they didn't reflect the Writing Guild and the Directors Guild properly, and the other guilds. But
the reason why the Academy was started in the first place was try to stop the guilds and the unions from forming. And it did postpone it for a while, but yeah, eventually everybody went on strike and they started the unions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't blame them. I think it's a good thing they did. But the category, the ceremony powered on through, persevered, and Mutiny on the Bounty won. And the other awards that it was up for, as I mentioned, it had three nominations for Best Actor. This was the year the impetus behind them making supporting actor nominations, because Clark Gable, Charles Lawton, and is it Franchot Tone? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Do you know?
Tone.
He's not.
It's Franchot Tone.
Franchot. It's not a name I've ever seen before, let alone said. So Franchot Tone. He's
sort of more famous as being the man Betty Davis stole from Joan Crawford.
Fair enough.
Okay. He's more famous as Joan Crawford's husband than as anything else.
So they were all nominated for Best Actor. That eventually went to Victor McLaglen for The Informer. Frank Lloyd was up for Director, but he lost to John Ford, also for The Informer. It was up for Best Writing and Screenplay, which also went to The Informer. Up for Editing, which went to A Midsummer Night's Dream, and Best Music Score, which also went to The Informer. The Informer, a film I've never heard of.
It's very good, but there's no water in it. Well, he might go by the waterfront at some point, but yeah, it's not
not enough. It's being cast
Not
aside from my list, not even being added to the list.
but it's very good.
Okay.
It's a very good film.
I'll add it to a different list.
And it's one of the, I think, only 4 films. I don't think there's a fifth in which one of the acting categories had 3 nominees in it.
Do you think maybe they cancelled each other out, or do you think Victor McLaglen should have won?
I can argue with Victor McLaglen winning. I would have probably given it to Charles Laughton or Clark Gable over Victor McLaglen. But so, yeah, maybe they did cancel each other out.
So
yeah.
Francis Tone, like the following year, would have been up for Best Supporting Actor. Had Mutiny on the Bounty come out a year later, I guess, because his role is very much a supporting role. But I think
if they were smart, they would have done him in supporting, because he would have had a better chance of winning.
Yes, but that category didn't exist yet, so they couldn't do it. Yes. But Gable.
Well, they were also having people nominated who only had like 10 or 15 minutes in a film, I think. They're saying, okay, we can't let this go on.
No more of this. Yeah. Because I think this was the year that they still had write-in votes as well.
No, they only actually did that either 1 or 2 years. And to be honest, I don't know. It could have been. It was Bette Davis in A Human Bondage. They were so outraged that she didn't get nominated that they allowed write-in votes. And she actually got enough write-in votes to be one of the top 5. And someone that same year actually did win with write-in votes in one of the technical categories. But I think they stopped it after that. I think they only did it for 1 year. They might have done it for 2. So if this was the year of Human Bondage, then yeah, this was the year where they allowed for write-in votes.
Oh, this was the year Bette Davis was nominated this year for Dangerous.
Yes, she won for Dangerous because of Human Bondage debacle.
So there was Captain Blood was a write-in nomination this year for Best Adaptation. I'm just on the Wikipedia page, and also music for Captain Blood. So I think write-ins. Yeah, the cinematography winner was Hal Moore for Midsummer Night's Dream, won from a write-in nomination. So I think this might have been the last year.
They did it. They did it then for 2 years, I guess, and then they discontinued it.
Yeah.
God, can you imagine what would happen today?
Oh,
dear. They lost votes after this. I would not want to be in that room.
It would be a very splintered vote. So like the top 5 each had like 12 votes. Everything's just splintering with everything. Be interesting, I guess. Be interesting just to see if they allowed write-in and everyone had to pick between all the write-in ones. That could be interesting. We'd see a different winner, perhaps. But that's not how it is. That's not how the Oscars do things. So.
But for example, for this year with Margot Robbie not getting a nomination, and then you said you can have write-in votes, who knows what would happen?
I mean, Greta Gerwig might also receive a lot of write-in nominations for director. I don't mean to inspire the ire of listeners, but I am okay with Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie not being nominated. I think I left Barbie with like Ryan Gosling's the best part of that film. I hope he's nominated. I don't think he should win, but I'm glad that he's getting recognition for being for committing to a very silly character. And I think Margot Robbie was very good, and I think Greta Gerwig's direction was very good, but those categories are pretty full. So
it was a tough year. That's what I mean. This is one of the better years for movies, and this was a really tough year.
Yeah. Great. Well, let's abandon this year's controversies or lack thereof and get into Mutiny on the Bounty. So you said that you think Charles Laughton would have won Best Actor if the vote hadn't been split. You'd given it to him. I agree. I think he's fantastic here. I love him to bits. He's great.
I don't know if he would have won. Victor McLaglen might have won, or who knows who the 4th nominee would be. But he would be my vote. Charles Laughton would get my vote. But Charles Laughton almost always gets my vote. He's one of Britain's greatest actors.
I agree. So I've seen him in this, and I've seen him in Jamaica Inn, the Hitchcock film.
Yes.
That
he steals that film. It's not a very good film. but he steals that film.
I have a soft spot for it because I was doing a mission to go through all of Hitchcock's films. I've still got a few to go, and so like this disc arrived in the post back when our version of Netflix was Love Film, back when they still did post films, and I took it just randomly on vacation and watched it whilst we were there, and we had to tell it we were staying just up the road from where it was set, just completely by fluke.
Okay.
We was like staying in the same town in Cornwall where Jamaica Inn was set. And I was just so amazed at the coincidence that I just loved the film a little bit more than I maybe should have done.
That's as good a reason as any.
But he is fantastic in it. I need to see his Hunchback of Notre Dame. I never have. I need to.
I haven't seen that one either.
See,
So, what was the third film you've seen of his?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've only seen two of his. I know I've seen three Clark Gables because I've seen it happen one night, and yeah, Gone with the Wind. Yes.
You haven't seen Witness for the Prosecution?
I haven't.
You will love that film.
Just scrolling through. So yeah, I haven't seen. Apparently, Charles Lawton is in Spartacus. I know I have been present while Spartacus has played, but I couldn't tell you a second of anything that happens in it other than various people saying they are Spartacus, despite probably not being Spartacus. So let's say I have seen that. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing his Hunchback of Notre Dame, and also Les Mis is one of my favorite musicals, and the fact that he played Javert in 35.
He's very good. It's better than the remake. Not as good as the musical, but it's better than the remake.
Okay, well I will seek out both of these. That was also up. That was the same year. Also up for Best Picture was Les Mis.
Yeah.
That
was the year they would often make 3, 4, 5 films a year.
Who has the time?
Well, I mean, they were under contract, and the studios weren't going to let them just lie around doing nothing, collecting a paycheck. So
fair enough. Make them work.
So you'll have supporting actors who were just in like 10 or 15 films a year. There's one, the one who was in this film. I'm trying to think of who he played. He was the one who was sort of in cahoots with Bly, and stealing things and supporting that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I got a lot of the of like Bly's, not henchmen, but a lot of his kind of crew. I got them mixed up a little bit because they all kind of look a little similar.
Yeah. But he is someone who Ian Wolfe. His name is Ian Wolfe.
Okay, he
has
Max.
300 something. Yeah, Max. He has 310 credits to his name.
Yep.
And he would sometimes be in movies for like one scene, and he's out. Most people would know him probably from THX 1138 because he's in that one. And that's how these kind of people were. He ended up staying at the actor's home, movie's home, at the end of his life. And he was very bitter because you didn't get residuals for movies until maybe the 60s or something. So he was getting nothing off of these 300 films that he made.
And his last credit was for Dick Tracy. So he's still working till he was 93. He was still working.
Yeah, instantly recognizable.
He was in an episode of Cheers. I'm going through Cheers at the moment, so I might. He's one of Coach's old war buddies in an episode of Cheers. Right. Makes sense. I'm liking Cheers less than I thought I would. Sam Malone has become quite an irritating character. Anyway.
Yeah.
So what was I going? So Les Mis was also up for Best Picture this year. There were 12 nominees for Best Picture in 1935, 36, I guess. So the other nominees were Alice Adams' Broadway Melody of 1936, Captain Blood, David Copperfield, The Informer, The Lives of a Bengal Lancer, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Les Miserables, Naughty Marietta, Ruggles of Red Gap, and Top Hat. I've seen one of these films. Have you seen more than one of these films? Oh, sorry, I've seen two of these films.
I don't know if I've seen Naughty Marietta. I haven't seen Did you say Broadway Melody of something, some year?
1936. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. And what was the next to the last one?
The penultimate one was Ruggles of Red Gap.
Yeah, I've not seen Ruggles of Red Gap, Red Gap, which I think also might be Charles Lawton. And but I really want to.
It is indeed, yes.
But I've seen, huh?
It is indeed Charles Lawton again.
He's supposed to be great in it. And but I've seen all the others. And this and Top Hat are probably the best films.
That's the two I've seen. So do you think Mutiny on the Bounty should have won out of that crop?
It would either be that or The Informer that should have won. So Mutiny on the Bounty was the bigger and more entertaining film. The Informer was more artsy kind of film. So, it's the same dilemma that we have today. Do we go for the artsy, serious film, or do we go for the big blockbuster? And it was the same then. It different did. And so Mutiny of the Bounty gets Best Picture, but it doesn't get anything else.
Yeah. Whereas these days it might have snagged a technical award perhaps as well, which they have more of these days than they used to.
The special effects and the cinematography were just great. I mean, the boat just looked great, and in the storms and so the special effects were really great for this as well.
And it might have got I don't think they didn't have like costuming or back then, whereas today they might have done, because I particularly enjoyed the sequence after, like post Mutiny, when Bligh and his small team are on their little lifeboat. Just the decreasing degrees of bedragglement that the crew are shown in. Just the last segment where they're just clothes barely hanging together about them. They've been at sea for 45 days, and just Charles Lawton is hung over the tiller, just near dead, is just this drunken troll-like expression on his face. That's a real great sequence. That's probably my favorite part of the film.
Well, what I think is most interesting about it is I swear that Charles Lawton has lost weight in those scenes. He just seems thinner. And I'm not sure how they did that, because he was never a thin person.
So it's all makeup and like bulldog clips behind his back, holding things.
They just pulled his.
Just hold your breath for this scene, Charles. Don't say anything. Just hold your breath. I think I read somewhere that he had his clothes were made to the same measurements as the real Captain Bligh, which just feels like a very odd choice, because unless they happen to be the exact same size, why wouldn't you want clothes that fit you rather than the character you're playing? Because you can't physically change your size. Not that method.
He could be very odd about it. I bet he probably was about the same size as Captain Bligh. But there were things like he was giving Alfred Hitchcock real problem on Jamaica Inn, because Charles Lawton had this thing where he couldn't really do the character until he figured out the character's walk. Okay. He thought the walk did everything in establishing the character, and it took him forever to find the walk in Jamaica Inn. It was driving Alfred Hitchcock up the wall.
He met his match finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Bligh, just a despicable human being in this film, at least. We're introduced to him. He's the captain of the Bounty, and we're introduced to him. When people hear that he's going to be the captain, they try and run away and flee because he has such a reputation. And his first act as captain of the Bounty is having a guy who's done something wrong, having them flogged 24 times, despite them already being dead. Which, as character introductions go, that's up there in terms of I get this guy. Yeah, I don't need to know anything else. That's broad strokes. This guy bad.
All the crew members are going, "Oh, this isn't good."
No one faints. and then he like keel hauls a guy, which at this point in history wasn't done anymore. But so that's another change to real life. But he keel hauls a guy, which if you don't know, is tied a rope around a guy, chucking him over the front of the boat, and then picking him up out the back of the boat after the hull has run over him. Which often killed them, and what do you know? In this one, it killed the guy, and he gets keel-hauled because he's scrubbing the decks, and he asks for some water to wash off his knees, and Bly's like, "You want some water? I'll give you some water," and just gives him an ironic punishment, like
yes,
which kills him. So yeah, not a good guy. But
no.
the contrast we have is I guess here, it's ostensibly the hero, but it could change as it goes through. Fletcher Christian, names are all the way around there. Clark Gable, who had to shave off his moustache. Can you imagine? To shave off his moustache.
He never did it again for Gone with the Wind. He said, "I'll do it, but I have to keep my mustache."
He pulled a Cesar Romero, and he's like the first mate or the first officer. I forget his actual title.
Yeah, that's a good question. First mate, I guess.
He is sailed with. He's the ship's lieutenant. There we are. So he has sailed with Bligh before a couple of times, and so Bligh specifically requested him, and he's just a real stand-up, nice guy, complete opposite of Clark Gable in real life, who was not a nice guy, especially to Charles Laughton. I think there were various cast members who wouldn't join this film because they hated Clark Gable so much.
Well, it could be. I mean, he basically made it or started his career by finding an older woman to sleep with who could do things for him, like teach him acting and fix his teeth. And then when he had no need for them anymore, he basically left them. So.
Sure. A real Alfie kind of character.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, got my teeth fixed? Gone.
Who's next? So he's the hero, kind of, and then you got Franchot Tone as Byam is like our third lead. He's a midshipman who's going on this voyage to make a Tahitian dictionary because they're heading to Tahiti for breadfruit plants with which to take.
Right.
They're taking them somewhere else to feed slaves. They kind of skip over that a little bit, as well they should. It's not like the whole point of this is slavery. Yay! So yeah, we don't dwell on that too much.
And Jamaica, yeah.
The guys in Jamaica.
Which apparently, even though they eventually got the breadfruit there, because Captain Bligh did a second voyage to get the breadfruit. Brought it to Jamaica, and the slaves just didn't like it, and they wouldn't eat it. So it was a failure all around.
It doesn't sound enticing, if I'm honest. I've never had breadfruit, and I don't think I ever will. I think there's a reason why they don't sell it in the supermarket. It's just like fruit, but it's bread. You know how sweet and refreshing bread is.
I don't even know exactly what it is.
I mean, I'm making wild assumptions that it's terrible, but it sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible.
Breadfruit is a species of flowering tree in the mulberry and jackfruit family. Okay, good. I'm not going to be making a breadfruit salad anytime soon. Good. So, that's our main three. But then the rest of the crew is all these. There's a bunch of people get press ganged into joining up, which still seems ridiculous if it was ever a thing. Just walk into a bar. Can you sail? You're on a ship now. You have no choice. Oh, you just got a new kid. Oh well, you're on a ship now. Bye. 2 years you'll be at sea if you don't mutiny.
Well, one of the things the War of 1812 was fought over was because the British would attack American ships, and they would press those people onto their ships. So it was a regular practice at the time. I don't know why anybody would live in a port
Sure.
if they didn't want to be pressed into a gang.
Well, I mean, they. So this is a personal gripe. This film sets sail from Portsmouth. I am initially from a town called Southampton, or city called Southampton. Southampton and Portsmouth, mortal enemies to the dawn of time. Montagues and Capulets kind of thing. Like my dad is. My family hails back to the Isle of Wight, which is an island off the south coast of England, which technically is in the Portsmouth postcode. So my dad supports Portsmouth football team, but my granddad, his dad, supported Southampton football team. And my sister's partner is Southampton football team. So there's a lot of rivalry going on in my family between these things that really mean nothing, because what the hell, who cares about football? But so just whenever they mention, I'll never see Portsmouth again. I'm just thinking like, good, you never want to see Portsmouth again. Why would you want to go back there? You should be grateful you got to leave and drown somewhere else. It's better than just living in Portsmouth. So apologies to any listeners from Portsmouth. I've been there a couple of times. The Spinnaker Tower is nice. That's about all I can say. It's not somewhere I've been often. Go Pompey, hooray. Yeah. So of the rest of the crew, there's a couple of standouts. Smith, Herbert Munden, is Captain Bligh's kind of mess guy. Like, he cleans up his cabin and that. He, to me, felt like a carry-on character. Because he's like the comic relief. His only business is emptying out. We first see him as, is this Bligh like a good man? I've got terrible nerves, and they're like, no, he's an evil bastard. He's gonna skin you alive. And so Smith's only job is to like empty out the buckets of waste, and he throws the first one into the wind and just gets covered in the stuff. And then later he's told he needs to throw it like with the wind, but the wind drops down. So what's he supposed to do? And then you just cut to 15 buckets of waste below deck because there's no wind to throw it into. So I liked that, but it felt like it was coming from a different film.
Know that when the wind isn't blowing, you can dump it anywhere.
Sure.
It just doesn't dawn on him.
They should have said don't throw it with the wind, just don't throw it into the wind. It should have been
Yes.
Yeah, he just felt like he was in a different film. Because there's very little other like comedic moments. You know, a guy jumps into a hammock that collapses. That's about it for comedy. And this is very much a dramatic adventure film.
Well, there are a lot of these kind of stock characters that were used in film at the time. So you'll see these, and you'll sort of they can sometimes interrupt the tone of the film because the acting is different. You know, they push the humor a bit too much. So, but they'll have these in all these films.
We covered Carry On Cruising last year as being the only aquatic carry-on film. And there was various bits in that felt similar to Smith's antics in here. So I feel like they crossed those two films over a little bit. But, you know, it's nice to have some comedy now and then. It breaks up the people being flogged and just tied up to the rigging for things they didn't really do. Because it turns out, like, you know, Bligh stole a couple of wheels of cheese and is blaming on everyone else. And he has the guy tied to the rigging who accuses him.
Well, it's like in the K Mutiny when Captain Quaid accuses someone of stealing the strawberries.
Heaven forbid.
As he's slowly going mad.
As I watched this with my wife, and her only comment on the film was that Charles Lawton had interesting eyebrows, which I agree with. I'm not sure. I guess they're real. I don't know why they wouldn't be.
Well, he was supposed to be in David Copperfield, and I think they had actually started filming it with him, and he plays the happy father of a bunch of kids that David Copperfield comes to stay with. And they fired him because he looked at the children like he was a pederast.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So they replaced him with W.C. Fields, who was great in the movie. He's absolutely wonderful in this character. But, yeah, they said it looks like he wants to have sex with the kids. So
I can see why they recast him, then. That's not a good look. Yes. But he has just the perfect look for this film. Like when
Mm-hmm.
like when he sends Byam up the mast for fighting, and he comes out when he's watching Byam go back up the mast fighting up in a storm, and he like Byam and Fletcher like cheering that when he makes it to the top and he did it, just the real like hangdog grumpy bulldog face that Charles Lawton has at that point is perfect. It's such a character actor face. I'm glad he got to work a bunch. He's like a real.
He's great at playing evil people or bad people.
He just. I've said it before on the show. People have evil faces, and like the people who work with that, good for them. Because we talked about the Rennie Harlin's Legend of Hercules recently, and the guy who plays Hercules in that one, whose name Kellen Lutz. Kellen Lutz has an evil face. It doesn't work for playing Hercules. So that's the main problem with that film is you have an evil face guy playing the hero. It's incorrect.
That can make a big difference if there's just something about the actor themselves. Sometimes you can't even explain it why they're miscast for a role.
Yeah, Kellen Lutz is a fine actor. He's fine, but like, he's not Hercules. He's Hercules from the neck down.
Yes. Which I'd be fine with, and
sure,
I was that way.
It sounds like an insult, but it's really not. You have the body of Hercules and the face of, I don't know, a gremlin. No, it's the man who could just rip me in half without trying.
Said, one friend of mine once said about someone, he's a really nice guy, but he has an unfortunate face.
Yeah, exactly. That I want to be clear, I would very much like to have. It's a better face than mine. Better ever than anyway. So speaking of insults, you three are a disgrace to saltwater was a line that I quite liked from Bly to three of his ne'er-do-well crew. I mean, it takes a little while to actually get to the mutiny. Like it's about an hour and a half in.
Yeah, it's like the third act.
Yeah.
It's all built up till then. Probably the slowest part is on the Tahiti island, which is sort of necessary because no one's quite sure why the mutiny really happened. There are different theories, but one of the things is it was because of spending 5 months on this island with these natives, and suddenly none of these people wanted to go back to Portsmouth, as you say. They'd rather stay there. And that was part of it that seemed to. So you have to have this sequence. At the same time, it is kind of condescending, French at tone with this dictionary and things like that. I'm going, oh, God. But that was, the time period when natives like that were treated very condescendingly and very, these spiritually fooled but naive and uneducated, people. So that's probably the longest part that maybe they could have cut down on.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was condescending speaking down to the Tahitians, but I feel like how they are depicted in the film, for the time, it could have been a lot worse. Like it could
have been a lot worse.
Because
yes.
I haven't got the guy's name, but the guy who plays like the head of the island is like a charismatic actor who like I was on board with immediately, and the two kind of prominent female characters are described as being I wrote it down, described as being like simple, kind, yet somehow royal. And I was like, okay, so that could have been described differently. And you're just saying that because they don't speak English. They speak one word of English. They speak yes. But they could have been like these aren't white actors in blackface, which I was concerned it might have been. So before we see them, and they are shown as understanding and just having their own kind of way of life. So when Byam is trying to explain the concept of money, the head of the island is like, no, this is stupid. Like, I will take the nail over the dime or whatever, or the penny, because he understands. Like, you need that to buy that. I'll just have the other thing. They have their own way of doing things, and it's better. Bill Bambridge is the name of the head of the island.
When Marlon Brando one of those people, I'm not sure who, Marlon Brando made Mutiny on the Bounty. He ended up marrying one of the women who would have been part of the native people there. Not sure what that says about him, because he was not supposed to be a particularly nice person with the females. But yeah.
I don't have any intention of seeking out that version, I guess. Because there's who's in that one?
You probably watch it in more sections than you would this one.
Sure. Oh God, it's 3 hours long. Oh, no, thank you. Marlon Brando, Trevor Howard, Richard Harris. Yeah, I'm less excited by this cast. Gordon Jackson from The Great Escape. That's always fun.
Very good.
Yeah, but I mean, the other one has Daniel Day-Lewis and Bernard Hill and Liam Neeson, Dexter Fletcher, John Sessions. John Sessions. Okay. Lots of British character actors from the 80s. Great. So I enjoyed it. It dragged a little bit, but I enjoyed the segment on the island. I feel like we had to spend more time there just to kind of show, the guys are having fun there, and Smith gets a bit more comedy because there's the island lady who has so many kids, and he initially runs away from her, and then at the end of it, when he has to leave, all the kids are crying, doing the worst acting I've ever seen of pretending to cry, just like sticking their finger in their eye and wiping it, like horizontal, vertical. That's okay. That's the best we're gonna get. Fine. But yeah, so the film is like almost 2.25 hours long, and the mutiny occurs around about the hour and a half mark, and it's pretty quick for being the title event of the film. It's quite a brief montage, and I was hoping for a little bit more. I mean, it was effective. It showed the mutiny happening in lots of quick shots and how they did it all, and they got these people over there, and these people fell from the rigging, etc. But it was it's kind of impromptu. They're planning it, and then Christian's like, "No, don't do that." And then there's one more straw that changes his mind, and they just go, "Let's go, do it now." And I don't know. I wanted more planning. I wanted more spectacle for the actual mutiny, I guess. Did you feel the same, or were you happy with it?
Well, I guess it never really hit me that way. I know what you mean. I mean, it's the most important event in the whole movie, and they do go through it pretty quickly, pretty economically, I guess one would say. It didn't strike me as being too short, but I know exactly what you mean. For something that big to not have more time devoted to it, it does kind of make sense that it might be longer or have more detail to it.
Yeah, because the crew have had all their gifts they're given from the Tahitians. They're all confiscated as being property of the crown. That's fruit, that's pearls, that's a live pig.
Yes.
Fine. Like he tried to keep a live pig secret.
He wasn't going to be able to keep that pig for long anyway. It was going to be eaten at some point.
Yeah, like it's wrapped in a blanket. No one will know I've got a live pig with me.
Yes.
Notoriously subtle creatures. Yes. And people are just locked up for basically no reason. So Bligh is overthrown. Him and his men are given a little lifeboat, set off to sea with some rations, and they're 3,500 miles away from the nearest safe bit of land. I believe in real life they did land somewhere nearer, but there were cannibals there, and not everyone was able to get back into the boat onto the next island, shall we say. They lost a couple of crew members on the cannibal island. They, for some reason, didn't put that in this film.
No, they had it just where they ended up straight where they wanted to be. They did have to stop, as you say, once they were going to. They got more supplies so they could go on. But it is, some people say it's one of the most remarkable events like this. He's this awful person, but he got them through this.
He
got them back to land.
He's a frustratingly good seaman. is the problem. Like,
Yes.
you're a despicable person, but you're pretty good at your job, Bly. That's
Yes.
why at the end they're like, yes, we respect you for what you did, but we're not going to shake your hand because just look at you, look at everything you do. Honestly, just have some respect. But yeah, so they're at sea for 45 days, and this is I think you can kind of tell the budget was maybe running a little low at this point in the filmmaking because this is just done in a montage where they pass a lot of time in with like text, basically with narrative. Like day 39 had to cut the water again. Day 45 we're almost dead, and then land. But I said earlier, I did like this little sequence. I mean, this little section here, like, is Bly becomes the main character. We kind of abandon Clark Gable for a
Right.
while, and you're almost on side with him because like, he's doing the impossible. He's being a real hero. He's getting them there. He's making decisions he's got to make with the whole like cutting the water, and the guys are catching a seagull and fighting over a seagull, and Bly is like, no, this old weak guy needs to have the food first because he's gonna die, and also this is a raw seagull, so it's gonna kill you all. But so, but that's kind of what I found interesting. Do you reckon? Okay, pretend you're amongst the crew of the Bounty. Would you have mutinied? Would you have gone with Bly? What do you reckon? What direction do you would have taken?
Well, I guess for me, I probably would not have wanted to stay on that island. I would have wanted to go back. Even if it's Portsmouth, I would have wanted to go back. The issue for me would be, would I be able to survive? I mean, on that lifeboat or that boat with Bly, no one should have survived. I mean, that was just an incredible event. I probably would have wanted to be more like Friendship Tone, who didn't get on the boat, eventually was taken back to England, falsely accused of mutineering, but he did was eventually pardoned for it all. But I would not have wanted to. That's not my kind of life. I didn't even like taking vacations to beach places. So I would have wanted to go back to England at some point. But as for joining Bly, that's such a risky thing to have to survive. So I might have rather say, can I stay on the ship until we get to a place you can drop me off so I can be picked up by someone who isn't going to die on their way back to land?
I'm not sure that was an option because they only kept by him because he was below decks when the mutiny happened, and they'd already set Bly off to sail at that point. But
I think in real life, though, I think there were like 4 who stayed on board, who they kept. They didn't allow them to leave. It wasn't like this. They were accidentally left behind. So I guess I'd rather be one of them.
I think, yeah, I don't do well in hot temperatures either. So like Tahiti sounds like an okay place to visit, but I'm not going to live here. And also, I've always been such a kind of rule follower in life that I would be like, mutiny? No, that's wrong. He's in charge. We do what he says. Yes, it's bad, but I've worked for
and
enough.
I'm not sure. And I keep thinking, would mutinying be any better?
Yeah.
Than we have now.
I've worked for enough evil dictators to know that I'm just going to blindly follow the rules, regardless of how unpleasant it might be. So I think I probably would have ended up on Bly's little boat and then been abandoned at the Cannibal Island. So I don't see myself surviving any of these encounters. But I definitely would have been like, yes, let's mutiny. Let's go against the crown, even though I'm very much against the crown. So there we are.
In many ways, you're supposed to I think, identify with the Friendship Tone character.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Who was on neither side. He was certainly didn't like Bly, but didn't feel like they should, rebel against him either. And I think that's one that the audience is supposed to really identify with. May not help that he was played by Friendship Tone, but who was an all right actor. But when you're next to Clark Gable and Charles Lawton, you know. But
Yeah, yeah.
but he married Joan Crawford, so you know, it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah, Fletcher Christian and his guys, they head back to Tahiti and they live there for a year. Christian gets married, has a baby. They're celebrating Christmas on the island. You can tell some of the other men are starting to miss home a little bit because we have a little brief shot of them singing Christmas carols in England and then cut to the men forlornly singing Christmas carols in Tahiti. But on the horizon, they see the Bounty has returned. No, not sorry, another ship, the Pandora. Yeah, the Pandora is there because they had the Bounty. And so now it just becomes, you're on the run for the rest of your life. Because
Right.
Bligh is just vengeance upon him. This is one of the details they changed, and that Bligh wasn't on the ship that tracked them down because he was off doing his second breadfruit mission quest.
Right.
But yeah, so the Pandora chases them. So Christian and his men flee to another island. They eventually get away because the Pandora gets wrecked. Just destroyed. Two ships are destroyed in this film for the pursuing of one of them. And so when Byam and a couple of the other guys kind of stay behind in Tahiti, like, I want to go home. One of the guys, the young guy who has the kid, he's like, I want to go home. I know I'm going to be hanged, but I just want to see my family again before I'm hanged. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Seems like an odd choice, but fine, I get it. Because Byam is just assumed to have been in on the Mutiny. I forgot the word mutiny, even though it's the title of the film.
Mhm.
So they will get like shackled below decks, and then when the ship gets wrecked, I was expecting them all to just drown. Like, and Bligh's villainies be like, no, leave them down there, the landlubbers. But no, they all get saved and they get out. Well, they mostly get out. One of them, at least one, doesn't make it. The one who could corroborate Byam's story. But yeah, as you said, Byam, they are tried, and they are all sentenced to be hanged, apart from Byam, who was eventually pardoned. Meanwhile, Fletcher Christian and his men, they eventually end up on Pitcairn. So they wreck the Bounty, they burn it, and then they just live on Pitcairn. And so I think this is like a trilogy of books, and the third book is all about the life on Pitcairn, and that was not really included in this adaptation. So we'll never know.
Yeah. Well, they didn't really have that great a life on Pitcairn. Christian dies 3 years later, either killed by the natives or by the other men. He's murdered. As I understand it, the native men were made into slaves.
Yes.
And only one person survived when a ship came to rescue them. And he has descendants there to this day.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can see that. Like, it's a better ending how they ended the film, I think. It's just the mystery of these men. They live here now.
Yeah.
We're not going to. It's fine.
And I don't think in real life anybody was hanged. I think everybody was pardoned eventually of the people that were arrested. But it does change a lot, especially Bligh's character. That's one that they change the most from real life.
Yeah, because I think, according to other like records of other ships at the time, he was actually more lenient than other captains and did less floggings, or fewer floggings.
And only 2 people died on the ship, one from, I think, dysentery or something like that, and the other from alcoholism.
Yes, which
So
kind of the doctor character, I guess, is fitting in that role. Yeah. So Bligh's estate should have sued this film, I guess.
You can't libel the dead.
True. Oh, fair enough. Okay. I didn't know that.
Well, I think that's actually true. You cannot libel the dead. You can't really sue once the person's dead.
I guess that you can't prove. There's no one to like. He didn't do that. Honestly, he's dead now. But yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, that's all my notes for Mutiny on the Bounty. Do you have anything else you want to talk about this film?
No, I think it is a beautiful film to look at. I think it's really well shot. I think it's a very exciting adventure. Not a great film, but just a fun film. I think both Charles Laughton and Clark Gable are really good in this. So yeah, I do recommend it to people who like this sort of big kind of adventure film. Certainly over the two remakes or the two whatever you want to call them. And I'm sure that Bounty is officially a remake.
Yeah. So if they did a new one, could they like set it in space or something? Or,
They probably already have, but we'd have to
Spaceship
think about
Bounty.
what that was. That's how they probably should do it. They've done the Seven Samurai in space. They've done
They're
High
doing it
Noon
again.
in space. Huh?
They're doing Seven Samurai in space again, or they just done it again, I think.
Are they remaking the original or doing a different one?
Because
The one on Netflix.
Yeah, because it's Battle Beyond the Stars,
It's,
and now they've done that one on Netflix.
yeah, the one on Netflix is supposed to be inspired by. I couldn't get through 20 minutes of it.
I didn't even try.
Oh, I'm a better man than you are then.
Okay.
But after 20 minutes, I said, no, this is not working.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we're done on the Bounty and the Mutant Bounty and its remakes, I got a couple of features to end the show. You may have wondered, listeners, why we haven't talked about Howard's thoughts on Deep Blue Sea. He hasn't seen it. He is our third guest to have never seen Deep Blue Sea. It happens.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one.
Illustrious company of Bubba Wheat and Audrey Fox. Is there a particular reason why you haven't seen it? You just didn't get to it.
Well, not my favorite director by any means.
How dare you?
He's the one who married Gina Davis, right?
Yes, Rennie Harlan, yes.
And destroyed her career.
I mean, it depends on your thoughts on Cutthroat Island, but sure, okay.
Yes. But yeah, her career never really recovered from the failures of those films. I always say, be careful not to let your husband take over your career. Yeah, he's just, and strangely, this is an odd thing. I often don't like, well, I don't know how much of Deep Blue Sea takes place under the water.
A fair amount.
I don't like movies like that. I don't know why. I get very nervous. I'm not particularly phobic about water or anything, and I go on trips on ships, but somehow I would never want to go scuba diving. I just never wanted that. So there are some films that I don't really want to be involved in because they make me uncomfortable. Can't say they trigger me, but they make me uncomfortable. But I think the main reason is, yes, Rennie Harlan is not on my list of directors and filmmakers to seek out and see, to be honest.
Okay, well, we love him on this show, and
yes, I guess you do.
we've covered almost all of his films at this point. But that's fair enough. Everyone has different tastes. That's what makes film loving so wonderful. So I have a couple of features for the show. First off, how is Mutiny on the Bounty similar to Deep Blue Sea? As I'm watching the film, I do a little list of anything that's similar. Spoilers, I guess, but I don't think you're that concerned. It mainly takes place at sea, cut off from the rest of the world, all isolated. There's a hierarchy power struggle in dire circumstances. There is an upper-class newcomer, which is Byam, which is compares to Samuel Jackson's character, Russell Franklin. There is a surgeon who is drunk and eventually missing limbs and dies. That's Dr. Jim Whitlock's character, Stellan Skarsgård's character. We see underwater sleeping quarters. There's lots of ladder climbing. They throw water into the wind at one point. When we first see Stellan Skarsgård's character in Deep Blue Sea, he is urinating into the wind. So it counts. There are people falling over in a storm, which happens all the time in Deep Blue Sea. There is a group prayer. There is an aquatic prison. They eat a bird at one point. A bird is eaten.
Oh, wow.
Which in Deep Blue Sea is a parrot. And here is a seagull. There is dancing on a ship. There is water gushing into a sinking room. And at one point they catch a shark. There is shark wrangling. because they have this like piece of allegedly pork that they put on a big hook and they throw it in water and they catch a shark. So there are sharks in this film. So hurry. The other feature, and I'll try not to trigger with this one, but how deep and how blue is this film? So Howard, when I've gone through watching Mutiny on the Bounty, I've taken an estimate of how deep all the action takes place at in the various scenes. I worked on average, and then how blue the screen is at any given time, and done an average on that one. So Deep Blue Sea, you said, does it take place much underwater? On average, it's about 14.5 meters or 47.5 feet deep. So the action.
So that's two. I can't remember what it's called. There's a term for 6 feet.
Is it a fathom?
Yeah, so it's about 2 fathoms down.
So if 6 feet, I know, because we're 47.5 feet on average, so that is 7.5 fathoms, almost 8 fathoms. Yeah. So yeah. I've never known how deep a fathom was. I thought it was longer than that. So yeah, approximately 8 fathoms deep is the action on average, the action in Deep Blue Sea, and it's about 31% blue. So Howard, do you think that the action in Mutiny on the Bounty takes place on average deeper than Deep Blue Sea?
I can't imagine, because about the only depth you get under the sea is when he's keel-hauled, and that's not that far under the sea.
When the guy gets keel-hauled and when the people are imprisoned in the hull of the ship, I think that is right at the bottom, so I took that as being deep. But then there's lots of stuff on land and up in the rigging and actually up on deck. So this works out as being about 1.77 meters or 5.8 feet, or a fathom up in the air on average. So depth-wise, this is slightly higher than the Lighthouse, but less high than House Shark, both of which take place entirely on land. And Howard, do you think this black and white film is bluer than Deep Blue Sea?
It might have been, but it's not.
No, it's very much not. It is our third black and white film we've covered, so it is down at the bottom of the list in joint 91st place with Lifeboat and The Lighthouse, all sat at 0. So good. That's this hasn't impacted the rankings at all. If you're trying to stay away from films that take place underwater, then I would advise you to stay away from the film Underwater, which is our deepest film. Because that takes place at the bottom of the Mariana Trench for the entirety of the film.
What was the film that Cameron did?
The Abyss. The
Abyss. I got really nervous watching that.
That's 6th on our list. That's that's like almost 500 fathoms.
That made me real nervous.
I can imagine. So avoid that one. And deeper films than that are The Meg, Aquaman, Leviathan, Underwater, and the Descent is technically deeper, but it's not underwater. I don't know how you feel about that. It's under rock. So
right.
But that'll do it for Mutiny on the Bounty. Howard, thank you for joining me. What would you like to plug? Where can the listeners find you, online or elsewhere?
Well, I usually just mainly say Apple, Anchor, iTunes, Apple, Anchor, and Spotify, which I guess is the same thing as Anchor now. But I'm at other places too, but those are the 3 main places. It's called Pop Art. I just uploaded. Pop Art is a podcast where my guest chooses a movie from popular culture, and I'll choose a movie from the more art, indie, foreign, whatever side of cinema to go with it. So I just uploaded, actually out of order, the 112th episode with Jennifer Van Seal, where we did Parasite and Lost Ceremony, which is about not only can good help be hard to find, it can be deadly. So it's about servants who turn deadly. And I'll mention the next one's coming up because all the people. The Vern and we just recorded May, December, and A Dream of Passion about actors who seek out people whom they sort of similar to whom they're playing on screen or whatever, who they're acting in order to do research. Todd Liebenow, then we'll do the Fantastic Mr. Fox and Straight Time, which is about two ex-cons who try to go straight but can't. And then Richard Kirkham is joining me for Valentine's Day, where we will be doing Ghost and Truly, Madly, Deeply, in which you discover that your loved ones are always there, whether you want them to be or not.
Excellent. And of course, you can go back and listen to the Christmas episodes from the past, I think, 4 years. I think I've done it 4 years in a row now, where we've talked about the likes of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Thin Man, Home Alone, and that French film.
Whatever French film that is.
I can't remember the name of it. And then National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and the other French film we talked about.
A Christmas Story, A Christmas Tale.
That's the one. And then last year we talked about
Wind Chill and Dead End.
Thank you, Wind Chill and Dead End, neither of which I had seen or heard of before watching them for your show, and hence why I can never remember their names. But they're both about driving at Christmas, traveling for Christmas, and things going awry along the way. With a fantastical.
The only thing worse than being home for Christmas is driving home for Christmas.
That is why this year we spent Christmas at home on our own. Yeah. That is the best way to do it. Anyway, listeners, you can find this podcast all over social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. We've had a lot of new listeners and subscribers recently, so welcome to you all. Although we're recording this like 6 weeks in advance, so hopefully you're still here. Welcome still. And you can find my writing over at lifeversusfilm.com. We're near the end of January, so I am, of course, just getting to my New Year's resolutions and end of 2023 posts, because I'm late with these things. And you can find everything Mark does over at moviesfilmsandflicks.com. Mark will be back next week as we talk about another film from Howard's favourite director, Rennie Harlin. So that will do it for Mutiny on the Bounty. Thank you once again to my guest, Howard Casner.
That was a great time. Thanks for asking me.
I'm glad. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you could make it, and we'll have you back again soon. I have been Jake Lowe, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.